3 out of the 5 dragons from Strixhaven are already done, so let's go ahead and get a 4th out of the way. And this time, is it gonna be a good one? Alright, bad puns aside, that already kind of gave away which dragon we're going to. Not that the thumbnail of the video didn't already do that, but we're going to be slinging some spells today with Galazeth Prismari, and this is effectively a storm deck, so I am going to give you guys the fair warning that if you play a deck like this around a group of friends, then you need to let them know what you're doing beforehand, otherwise they may not appreciate you very much. Storm does make people feel a certain type of way. It's a lot like Infect or coming up to the card shop without deodorant on. Everybody does it once or twice, but you should probably mitigate the amount of times you're willing to do that to the people around you. Galazeth Prismari is an Izzet and 2 commander who says, when he enters the battlefield, make a treasure token, and artifacts you control have the ability to tap for mana of any color, as long as that mana is being spent on instant or sorcery spells. This yields itself very well to a spell slinger deck, and that is exactly what we are going to be doing. Our goal is going to be to pay off slinging spells with burning our opponents to death with either small chip damage or big payoffs. And let's first get some of that small chip damage out of the way. We have 9 ways of slowly burning our opponents out. Sunshot Melissa and Xiao Jun will allow us to burn our opponents by tapping just 2 artifacts we control, giving us super easy access to burn irrespective of whether our commander is out or not. And for casting lots of spells, we have Thermo Alchemist, Fiery Inscription, Coruscation Mage, Erebor Flamesmith, and Gutter Snipe, which will burn our opponents for damage every time we cast a non-creature or, in many of their cases, an instant or sorcery spell. Firebrand Archer will do this when we cast any non-creature spell whatsoever, which is fantastic. Also, just so you remember, the Coruscation Mage does have Offspring, so we do have the ability to get more damage out of this when we play it. Finally, in the burning section, we have a Sorcerer class. We are running a $30 deck, so we have a little bit of leeway with stuff like this. The Sorcerer class will draw us 2 and discard 2 when it comes out. Then it can transform any of our creatures into mana dorks for the purpose of casting instants or sorceries, or even gaining more class levels. And then finally, this will give us a storm-winning ability. When we cast an instant or sorcery spell, we will burn each opponent equal to the amount of instants and sorceries that we have casted during that turn. So we get to deal 1 damage, then 3 damage, then 6 damage. You see what's happening. Then we have some of the big payoffs in the deck, stuff that will allow our setup to end up ending our opponent's lives, beginning with a dramatic reversal. This will allow us to untap all of our treasures and other artifacts that we have on the board in order to pay for really, really, really big spells. And one of those big spells is Jaya's Immolating Inferno, which deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. We can use this to instantly burn our opponents to death. We can also do similar with Expansion Explosion, letting us either copy a spell like the Jaya's Immolating Inferno, or allowing us to deal X damage to any target and then draw lots and lots and lots of cards. Epic Experiment can be used to dig through our deck at lightning speed and cast any number of those cards without paying their mana costs. Culmination of Studies can be used to turn our deck into a giant burn pile and draw engine, and Rise and Shine can be used to take all of the artifacts we've put on the board and transform them into 4/4 creatures that can swing out to end the game. And Malcolm the Eyes gives us the ability to investigate slowly as we cast our spells, and we can use that investigation very well when we are using cards like Dramatic Reversal to let us recast cards later. Finally, the big one here is going to be Saheeli Sublime Artificer, who says when we cast a non-creature spell, we can make a 1/1 servo artifact token. But the big reason you run this is for the -2 ability that says that we can turn any artifact we control into a copy of another artifact or creature we control, in addition to its other types. Transforming any of our artifacts into copies of cards like Coruscation Mage or Gutter Snipe can quickly burn our opponents out for lots and lots of damage. Speaking of copies, we are running a bunch of ways to copy our spells, with Double Vision being the easiest one to throw down onto the battlefield. This allows us to copy our first instant and sorcery we cast every turn. Thousand Year Storm will copy every instant and sorcery we cast for the amount of times we have storm counted. So let's say you cast Ponder, you'll get 1 Ponder. Then when you cast Consider, you'll get 2 Considers, and then you'll get 3 of whatever spell you cast next. It's a fantastic card to close a game out with. Swarm Intelligence will copy every instant and sorcery we cast once, and this will allow us to dig deeper into our deck with draw spells, remove more problematic creatures from the board, or just win the game outright. All in all, this is a deck that has a bunch of non-deterministic combos, so it is very simple to play, but it is going to be very, very hard to keep your opponents entertained while you play your turns out, because sometimes the answer to "Are we dead yet?" is going to be, I don't know, maybe. So let's go ahead and find some ways to draw into our deck to make sure that that answer for "Are we dead yet?" becomes yes more often than not. To facilitate digging through our deck at lightning speed, we are running a 20-card draw engine, beginning with Deduce, which will draw us a card, and then Investigate. Flick a Coin will draw us a card, deal 1 damage to a thing, and then make a treasure token. Pirate's Prize will draw 2 cards and make a treasure token. Inspired Tinkering will give us 3 impulse draw and 3 treasure tokens. Seize the Spoil draws 2 cards and makes a treasure token while discarding a card. Then we have Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, which both have Delve and can get lots of cards out of the top of our deck. Trail of Evidence turns all of our instants and sorceries into Investigate spells on top of whatever they are already doing. Demand Answers can sacrifice an artifact to draw 2 cards. Pirate's Pillage draws us 2 cards and makes a treasure token. The Everflowing Well draws us 2 cards, mills us 2 cards, and then is an artifact that will allow us to use our commander's ability to generate even more mana. And sometimes you can flip it into Myriad Pools, which will allow us to transform any card on our board into a copy of a spell we are casting. Selendi Visions is an MDFC we can use to dig into our deck for better game pieces. Mary Reed gives us looting and also the ability to generate treasure tokens when we loot certain cards. Jory and Ruin Diver draws us cards when we cast our second spell every turn. Expressive Iteration lets us dig 3 cards deep and cast a card from those cards, as well as exile one of those cards to cast later. Then we have Thought Monitor, which lets us draw 2 cards and has affinity for artifacts, so it's an artifact we can tap for mana later as well. And Thoughtcast just draws us 2 cards while having affinity for artifact. Unexpected Windfall and Big Score draw us a couple cards and make a couple treasure tokens while discarding cards, and Archmage of Runes will draw us a card every time we cast an instant or a sorcery spell while discounting the cost of those spells. Ideally, this should allow us to dig super far into our deck very, very quickly, and that way we can end up winning our games very handedly. But we do still need to make sure our opponents aren't able to win the games on their own turns, so let's go ahead and disrupt their strategies just a bit. To disrupt our opponents, we are going to run a handful of removal spells, but we are not going to be doing any board wiping because we don't need to break parity all that often. And there are some pseudo ways we can kind of sort of board wipe by stacking our spells in a particular way, so we don't necessarily need to worry about that. But we have a Braid here to blow up artifacts or creatures, confirm suspicion to counter spells and investigate lots of times, Spell Swindle to counter spells and get treasures a bunch of times, access denied counter spells, and makes a bunch of Thopter tokens, which of course all tap for mana. Resculpt gets rid of artifact or creatures. Reality Shift gets rid of a problematic creature. Hell to Pay can deal X damage to any target creature and then makes a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the amount of excess damage dealt this way. Use this when you have no other spells to cast and just burn through all of your mana to basically double your mana. Chaos Warp can get rid of any problematic card on the board with a small risk associated. Assert Authority is a great counterspell that we can pay for 2 mana 9 times out of 10 because it has affinity for artifacts, and Negate can counter any non-creature spell. Again, we are not running any big board wipes this time around because our goal is to close out the game before that becomes necessary at all. So let's go ahead and talk about the next part of the deck, which is our ramp and mana package, before we get into how to play this thing. We get to be kind of cheeky with ramp this time around with only a couple of mainstays in the deck. We get to run a Soul Ring and an Arcane Signet and an Izzet Signet, but after that, everything's a little bit quirky. We've got a Strike It Rich to generate a treasure token twice, Brass's Bounty to make lots of treasure tokens, Hit the Mother Lode to make lots of tap treasure tokens and get a spell cast off the top of our deck because it has Discover 10, Goblin Electromancer and Storm Catch Mentor will drop the cost of our instants and sorceries down by 1 each, Inspiring Sanctuary Library is a second copy of our commander, giving all of our non-artifact spells improvise. Dowsing Device comes onto the battlefield and can be two things for us at once. On the one hand, it can immediately flip into a land, which ramps us a little bit, but on the other hand, the Dowsing Device's front side is completely worthless. The back side lets us give a creature haste and XO, where X is the number of artifacts we control. There are certain games where we will be completely loaded up on artifact tokens, and we will not have any way to win the game besides tapping this land and burning an opponent out with our commander's attack. And the big one we are running is going to be a Stormkiln Artist, which generates a treasure every time we cast an instant or a sorcery spell, potentially allowing us to dig through our deck ridiculously fast by giving us free mana every time we cast spells. Lands-wise, we are going to be running 10 mountains and 12 islands. The dual lands, Ferris Lake, Sulphur Falls, Temple of Epiphany, Exotic Orchard, Frostboil Snar, Command Tower, and Is It Boiler Works. We're also going to be running a bunch of fetch lands in Evolving Wilds, Escape, Tunnel, and Terramorphic Expanse. These lands are all effectively the same land, with Shire Terrace and Promising Vein being the same land as well for their own right. These cards are great because they allow you to have mana access at any point and then sack them to Mana Filter if you need. But sometimes they'll just come down as a land, and that's perfectly fine. Myriad Landscape allows us access to ramping if we so choose, but otherwise is a colorless land. And in our utility lands, we have a Pit of Offerings and a Spine Rock Null, which can be used to freely cast spells from the top of our deck, while the Pit of Offerings can get rid of cards from players' graveyards. And that does it for everything in the deck. It should be really straightforward to dig through our deck really quickly and get to a storm count high enough to win the game, but let's go ahead and see what we can do with this when we get into the gameplay section. Let's go ahead and talk keepable hands. If you've got 3 lands and a little bit of draw, you can probably make that work. And as it turns out, that's exactly what we have here. So let's go ahead and do our draw for turn, play the Shire Terrace, and pass to the next turn. That gives us a Hell to Pay, which we don't necessarily need. So we're just going to crack that Shire Terrace and go into our graveyard and grab that mountain. So we have both of our deck's colors ready to go. We move into turn 3. We've drawn another mountain, and it's time to go ahead and get Fiery Inscription online so that we can start burning our opponents out throughout the game. Next turn comes up and we have an island, so let's go ahead and pay 1, 2, 3, 4. Commander is going to be out and available, generating us a single treasure token. We move into turn 5, and now it's time to go ahead and start doing what the deck is wanting to do. Brass's Bounty will give us a treasure for every land we control, which we don't need right now, so let's go ahead and pay 1 and 2. Let's get Goblin Electromancer out. This will discount our spells a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and pay 1, 2, and play Flick a Coin. This will generate a treasure token and draw us a card and snipe 1 card. If it's a Llanowar Elf or something, it dies. If not, then we're just kind of where we want to be anyway. We have 3 available mana and nothing to do with it here. We've burned our opponents for 2, so we're going to go ahead and track that up here just so that we know how much damage we've done. We move into turn 6, and we have a Dowsing Device with enough. We have the ability to make enough artifacts to make this work, actually, all things considered. Let's go ahead and play a mountain, and 1, 2. It's when an artifact touches the board, right? Or another artifact enters. Yeah, we can do this at any point. We can play the Dowsing Device just to get it out and available, and let's see. No, we're not going to do that. We need Hit the Motherlode to happen. That's going to cost 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. We'll tap 6, Hit the Motherlode happens, discover 10, and let's go ahead and see what we get. We get the Thermo Alchemist, boom, and we burn our opponents for 2. Thermo Alchemist is out. This goes to the bottom of the library, and we generate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 treasures off of the Hit the Motherlode. This is very, very ideal for us. We've got plenty of mana for a following turn. Our opponents have burned for 2. We're going to go ahead and pay 2. Dowsing Device comes down and immediately turns over into the Geode Grotto. Now, we can't do anything else, so we pass to our opponents, and we move into our turn 7. Now we're going to pay 2, and we are going to play the Firebrand Archer. Now when we cast non-creature spells, we will be able to deal 1 damage to every opponent. We're going to tap the Thermo Alchemist to deal 1 damage to every opponent as well, and let's begin working with our cards. We're going to pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and play Brass's Bounty. This will make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We don't have to have that one, actually. Cool. That generates us 7 untap. Wow, why did they not all untap? That's weird. Weird. Okay, fine. We'll just untap them all manually, since that's what the game wants us to do. Weird. Brass's Bounty goes off. Our opponents burn for 1 from the Firebrand Archer, 2 from the Fiery Inscription, and 1 more from the Thermo Alchemist, because he untaps when we do that. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17... Or, no, just 16 artifacts on the board. Hell to Pay is available. Deal X damage to a creature, create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the excess damage dealt. Screw it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We're going to Hell to Pay, and we're going to burn one of our opponent's creatures out. They're all going to burn for 4, and we're going to go ahead and tap the Geode Grotto, and we are going to give Galazeth Prismari... hold on. Let's assume we make 6 treasures off of that. Prismari is going to have 7, 14, 20, 21, 22, 25 damage. He's going to swing at somebody for 25. One opponent is eliminated turn 7. That's it. They're out. They're completely dead. Our other opponents are at 27 life each. We move into the next turn, and we're just going to Geode Grotto. Boom, another opponent is dead. Next turn, Geode Grotto. Another opponent is dead. If our opponents wipe our board out, then we just resummon Galazeth, and we'll do this again because this gives him haste. If they don't kill all of our treasure tokens, we can do this as many times as we damn well please. We've got one of the deck's win conditions here, and if we draw into any of our storm stuff, these cards will burn our opponents out as well. We've managed to kill everybody on turn 9, with the first death done on turn 7. That was not the way I originally intended to win the game, but, you know, a bunch of treasures and a commander swinging for Voltron of 12 bajillion is perfectly normal, and I guess a reasonable way to close a game out. Let's go ahead and talk about what you would do if you were upgrading the deck just a little bit, though. Because this deck already does a lot of damage out the gate, then all we need to be worried about when we are upgrading the deck is try to give it a few more avenues of recursion or some more mana efficiency and some better payoffs. So mana efficient counterspells like Swan Song can do you a lot of good, or weaving our counterspells and disruption into our mana base, like with cards like Sink into Stupor. We can also make sure that some draw and recursion are in our mana base with Valakut Awakening and Pinnacle Monk. We can also make sure that we have cards like Invert Polarity available to us so that we can counter spells and then gain control of them. This is a fun way to disrupt what would otherwise be a bad situation for us whenever our opponents try to remove things from our board. We can also refresh our hand quickly after getting rid of it with cards like Windfall and Niv Mizzet Visionary, and we can triple up on our commander's ability with our Academy Manufacturer. Archmage Emeritus will give us an easy access to draw. I just wish I could have fit him in this deck's version. Let's add 2 more things to our top end with the upgrades as well, though. Past in Flames gives us the ability to cast our instants and sorceries at flashback cost, which, if we have enough treasures on the board, is basically free. We're getting all those cards, and while they will exile themselves after we use Past in Flames, they will allow us to just win a game outright. And the biggest big upgrade you could add into the deck later is a Crackle with Power. You saw at the end there, our commander was sitting on a lot of mana, like 25 mana. So Crackle with Power can burn everybody out for 5 times X damage. So if you pay 5 mana, every opponent will burn for 5. If you pay 8 mana, every opponent will burn for 10, and it just kind of compounds from there. And that's about it for Galazeth. Honestly, the only complaint I have with this deck is I hate storm decks. I've played this deck in a variety of forms, be it Veyron or Stella Lee or Galazeth himself, and while I do understand how the decks play and I know how to make them do lots and lots of damage, I just don't enjoy storm decks, but I can't deny how easy it is to lean him into that storm damage realm with how much just raw power comes out of this fucker. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. This was one of the faster deck builds to throw together because I'm just I'm very familiar with this avenue of playing Magic. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravelern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Agamotto, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.